Hi, Ranger Leo again to welcome you back for the next story in this year's Blue Heron Ghost Train. Tonight, we're in a picnic shelter at the edge of the woods. And beside me is a quilt draped over a chair, and we have a red lantern and a campfire to keep the darkness at bay. Tonight's storyteller is Lunisha Hewitt, who's going to share with us a tale about a blacksmith. I will now trade places with Lunisha. Enjoy.
Oh, hi. I'm so glad you're here. I was just enjoying this campfire on this beautiful night, and it made me think of a story about a blacksmith and the fire that he had. I was hoping somebody would show up that I could tell it to. You see, around 100 years ago, not far from here, there lived a blacksmith. His name was John, and he had his shop out behind his house. Well, he earned a name from his neighbors, not so nice name. They called him Wicked John. You see, he was mean to everybody. Him and his wife, they fought all the time. His neighbors, he was so mean to all of his neighbors. He fought with them, never had a good word for anybody. So they all referred to him as Wicked John. Now, Wicked John was not always wicked. There were some people that he was good to. He was always good to strangers. Any stranger he met, he was always on his best behavior. He was his nicest when he was around strangers. So, one day, Wicked John was working in his shop, and he happened to look around, and in the door came this little old man. He was all humped over. He was so bent over and so crippled up that he was walking on two canes, just all humped over, walking on those two canes. And he came through the door, and Wicked John looked over and saw him, and Wicked John said, come on in here, old timer. Come in here and set a spell. Why don't you sit over there in my rocking chair? My rocking chair is mighty comfortable. Why don't you come sit in my chair? So the old timer made his way slowly over to the rocking chair, and he sat down. Wicked John said, I'm working on something. I'll be with you in just a few minutes. Let me finish up what I'm working on. So the old timer just sat there and just waited patiently for Wicked John to finish. Well, in a few minutes, Wicked John finished what he was working on, and he told the old timer, he said, I'll be back in just a few minutes. You wait right there. I'll be right back. You just rest your old bones, and I'll be right back. So the old man just sat there and waited for a few minutes, waited on Wicked John to return. A few minutes later, Wicked John comes in with a big old platter heaped up with food. All kinds of good delicacies. Had fried chicken on there, mashed taters and gravy, a big old piece of country ham, some green beans, some coleslaw. Sounds like a sampler platter at Cracker Barrel. And on the side, he had a big old bowl of blackberry cobbler with homemade ice cream on top of it, and a big glass of sweet tea. He sat that down to the old man, and he said, here, see if you can find something there that you like. Then Wicked John went back over to his work table and started working. The old man sat there, and he ate, and he ate. And he said, this is the best food I've ever had. And Wicked John said, I'm so glad you're enjoying that. I'm glad you like it. And the old fella just kept eating and eating, and finally he finished up, and he set his plate over to the side, and Wicked John was working on some horseshoes, and he looked around in a minute, and that old fella started to stand up. And he didn't look so old anymore. And he wasn't so bent over anymore. He didn't look so crippled up anymore. He was straightening and straightening and straightening up. And by the time he got to his full height, he was over 6 feet tall. He dropped those 2 canes. Wicked John was kind of taken aback. He said, Who are you? And the old timer said, I'm St. Peter. Wicked John said, St. Peter? You mean St. Peter like up there, St. Peter? St. Peter said, yes, that's me, the one and only. Wicked John said, well, what are you doing here? Why'd you come to see me? St. Peter said, well, you see, I roam the earth once a year. And I travel around and visit different folks. And the first person that I find that's good to me, I grant them 3 wishes. And you're the first person that's been good to me. I've visited a lot of folks already, but you're the first one that's been good to me. So you get 3 wishes. Anything you want. Well, Wicked John started thinking. He said, 3 wishes, right? St. Peter said, yes. Wicked John said, anything I want, right? St. Peter said, yes, anything you want. Whatever you say, I'll grant it. Wicked John said, okay, I know what I want my first wish to be. St. Peter said, what? Wicked John said, well, I want you to make my hammer, and he held his hammer up. He said, I want you to make my hammer so that if anybody touches it besides me, that it'll just hammer and hammer and hammer and hammer and not stop until I tell it to. St. Peter said, that's a mighty strange wish. Are you sure that's what you want? Wicked John said, yes, that's exactly what I want. St. Peter said, do you mind if I ask why? Why would you wish such a thing? You could ask for money. You could ask for anything you wanted. You could ask for long life, anything you want. Wicked John said, well, you see, I work with my hammer every day. It's a blacksmith's tool that we use all the time. But these neighbor boys, these bunch of hoodlums around here, they come in here at night after I'm finished. They sneak in my shop, they take my hammer, and they go out in these fields out here, and they beat on rocks out there, seeing how big a rock they can break. Who can break the biggest rock? They have a big contest. Then the next morning, I come in, ready to go to work. My hammer's gone, and I got to go out and track it down. So I don't want them to be able to use my hammer. I want it to hammer and hammer and hammer, teach them a lesson if they touch it. St. Peter said, well, that seems like a logical complaint. That seems like a good wish, a good solution, so it's done. Do you know what your second one's going to be? Wicked John thought just a minute, and he said, my rocking chair. He said, I know what I want. I want my rocking chair. I want you to fix it so that nobody can sit in my rocking chair but me. If anybody else sits in it, it'll rock and rock and rock and rock and rock and not stop until I tell it to stop. The old timer said, well, I just sat in your rocking chair. Why do you care for people sitting in your rocking chair? Wicked John said, well, you see, I work hard. I work long hours for everybody around here, working on their wagon wheels, working on their horseshoes. I'm busy all the time working for them. In the evenings, I'm still working. They're all finished. And they like to come in the shop and hang out, sit around, talk to me while I'm trying to get finished up working. And the first thing I know, somebody's sitting in my rocking chair. And you know how comfortable it is because you sat in it yourself. Somebody be sitting over there in my rocking chair, And when I get finished with work, I don't have a place to sit. I can't even sit in my own chair. So I want you to fix it if anybody sits in it besides me. That it'll just rock and rock and rock and rock, and it won't stop till I tell it to. That'll teach him to not sit in my chair. Well, St. Peter said, if you're sure that's what you want, Wicked John said, yeah, I'm sure. So St. Peter said, okay, it's done. Now, choose carefully. You've only got one more wish. Think about it. You can have anything you want. Think about it. Choose carefully on this last wish. Wicked John thought and he thought. And he said, well, I can only think of one more thing that I'd like to have. St. Peter said, well, what is it? And he said, well, you see, my porch out there in the front of the shop, I've got a thorn bush out there, and I planted that thorn bush myself as a little tiny plant. I planted it. I started it. And look how big it's grown. St. Peter looked at it and said, yeah, that's a nice bush. It's got pretty blooms on it. Wicked John said, yes, it's a beautiful bush, and it always has beautiful blooms on it every summer. But those fox hunters come through here, and they're all the time cutting them a switch to use on their horses. They're hurting my bush. They've cut a lot of it off. St. Peter said, okay, so what are you wishing for? Wicked John said, well, I want you to make it so that if anybody touches my thorn bush besides me, that'll just wrap all around them and just hug them real tight and squeeze them until I tell it to stop. St. Peter said, now, you understand that this is your last wish, right? Wicked John said, I understand, and that's what I really want. St. Peter said, no money. Wicked John said, nope. St. Peter said, no longer life. Wicked John said, nope. St. Peter said, okay, if you're sure that's what you want, I'll do it. Wicked John said, I'm sure. St. Peter said, done. And he was gone. Just like that. He was gone. So, Wicked John didn't think any more about the wishes. He kind of thought maybe he dreamed that he dreamed about St. Peter. That doesn't really happen. A couple of weeks later, he got in one of those big fights with his wife. And they were throwing things and screaming at each other and slamming stuff. And she said, to the devil with you. I'm just sick and tired of putting up with you. I'm just over it. Wicked John says, fine then. Slams that door as he goes out to his shop, and he starts to work. He's got a wagon wheel he's supposed to have finished up that night. So he goes out and he starts working on that wagon wheel. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of his eye, he sees something in the doorway. He glances over, and there's a little tiny devil about that big. And Wicked John said, what are you doing here? And the little devil said, your missus is tired of what you're doing, Wicked John. She's tired of it. She wants the devil to take you away. So my pa sent me to get you. He told me to hurry up and bring you right back. Wicked John said, what? The little devil said, you heard me. My pa sent me to get you. I'm supposed to take you back. Now hurry up. Pa's waiting. Wicked John said, okay, I'll go with you. I don't care to go with you. But I've got to finish on this wagon wheel. As soon as I finish this wagon wheel, then we can go. So the little devil said, okay, I'll wait on you. And the devil was walking around the shop. He was looking at all the stuff in the shop and picking up the horseshoes and looking at them and walking around. And Wicked John said, you know, if you would help me, we could get going a lot quicker. And the little devil said, okay, I don't care to help. What do you need me to do? Wicked John said, well, I'm going to hold the wagon wheel. I'm going to hold the wagon wheel. And what I need you to do, I need you to go over there on that bench and get my hammer, and I need you to hammer it for me. The little devil said, okay. So he went over to the workbench over there, and he picked up the hammer, and the hammer started hammering all over the place. And the little devil put it in both hands, and it was hammering. It was hammering on the ceiling and hammering all around the walls and hammering on the floor, hammering everywhere. And the little devil was saying, stop! Stop! Make it stop! And it kept hammering and hammering all over the place. Please make it stop! Please make it stop, mister! Make it stop! Wicked John said, I'll make it stop on one condition. And the little devil said, anything, I'll do anything if you'll just make it stop. Wicked John said, okay, I want you to go away. Promise you're going to go away. And don't ever bother me again. And the little devil said, I'll go, just make this stop, make it stop. And Wicked John said, stop. And the hammer stopped. And the little devil was on the ceiling and he went splat on the floor with the hammer. Wicked John picked up the hammer, put it on the workbench, and the little devil went and was gone. So Wicked John thought, I've got to quit having these crazy dreams. Finished up working on the wagon wheel. Didn't think any more about the little devil. Didn't tell anybody. Went on for a few weeks. And once again, as usual, him and the missus got in another one of their fights. And they were fussing and throwing things and screaming and hollering. And he slammed the door going out to the shop. That's what he always did to get away from her. He'd go out to the shop. He slammed the door to get away from her. And she said, to the devil with you. I'm so sick and tired of this. He said, yeah, to the devil with me. They tried that. So he went out and he started working again. He was working on some horseshoes. And he was working on some horseshoes. And he was focused on what he was doing. And then all of a sudden, he thought he saw something out of the corner of his eye. And he looked around. And this time, there was another little devil. But it wasn't a little one. It was a middle-sized devil this time. And Wicked John said, what are you doing here? And the devil walked in and he said, my pa done told me what you did to my brother. Pa's upset with you. He's mad. You were supposed to come with us the last time and you wouldn't come. Wicked John said, I was going to go when I finished my work. The devil said, well, Pa sent me. I'm bigger. He sent me to get you this time. The missus is tired of you. I've come to take you back. And Pa said, for me not be helping you do any of your work either. Wicked John said, I don't expect you to help me do any of my work. He said, I can handle it myself. But I do have to finish these horseshoes, so just a few of them. Why don't you sit down in my rocking chair and wait on me? You look like you're tired. You look like you've had a long trip. Well, the devil kind of walked around and walked around the shop and looked around a little bit, and then he got kind of tired, and he said, are you going to be much longer? Wicked John said, I've got a few more to finish up here. A little bit more. I've got to have this job done before morning, so you could sit in my chair and wait. It's mighty comfortable. So the little devil just kind of plopped down in the chair. And oh, it was comfortable. And he started to rock. And he rocked. And he rocked. and was feeling really good. He was kind of getting sleepy. Kept rocking in that chair, and all of a sudden that rocking chair started rocking on its own, and it was rocking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and his head was hitting the back of the chair. Back and forth, his head was hitting the chair, and he was about to fall out in the front, and then he'd fly backwards, and he started screaming, "Stop! Stop! Make it stop!" And he's flopping back and forth. "Stop! Make it stop! I'm getting sick! I'm going to throw up! Let me out of here! Let me out of here!" Wicked John said, "I'll let you out on one condition. Anything! I'll do anything! I'll do anything if you'll let me out of here! Let me out! Let me out!" Wicked John said, "You have to promise that you're going to go away, leave me alone, and don't you ever come back here again." The little devil said, I promise, just make it stop, make it stop, make it stop." Wicked John said, "Stop." Just like that, the chair stopped, and the little devil was gone. Well, Wicked John kind of straightened up a little bit after having 2 visits from these little devils. He wasn't as grouchy with his wife. He was trying to be a little bit better, turning over a new leaf, as you might say. But, you know, that can't last forever. So finally, a couple of months later, him and his wife got in another fight. And they were screaming and yelling, and she threw the frying pan across the house at him. And she said, "I just hope the pure old devil himself comes to get you. I'm just so sick and tired of you and all this. I hope the devil himself comes to get you and just takes you out of here, just takes you away." And Wicked John said, "Fine then," slammed the door as he went out. Straight to the shop he went, because that's where he always went when they got in one of their fights. Straight to the shop he went. And he's in there working and he's just fuming because he's so mad at his wife about all this stuff. He's been trying so hard to be a better husband and to do the things he should, and then she's got to fly off and act like that. What's she thinking? So he's just working and thinking and just so angry, and all of a sudden he looks around, and there in the doorway was, did you guess it? The pure old devil himself. Not one of the babies, not one of the little ones. The daddy devil. Right there he was. Wicked John said, "What are you doing here?" And the devil said, "Wicked John, I am so angry with you. I sent both of my boys after you, and I don't like what you did to them. They're just kids. I don't like what you did to them. I don't appreciate you treating my boys like that. I thought either one of them could handle this job, but I see that you're too much for them. So I decided to come myself to take care of this job. And don't you start. I'm not going to touch that hammer of yours. I'm not helping you with your work. They told me about the hammer." Wicked John said, "Why don't you sit down?" "I'm not sitting in that rocking chair. They told me about the rocking chair too, and I'm not sitting in it. I'm not falling for it. You're coming with me. I'm not giving you any time to work. No excuses. You're coming with me, and that's that. Your time is up. You're going." Wicked John said, "Oh, no, I'm not. I will not go with you." And the devil wraps his arms around Wicked John, and they start scuffling, and they're fighting, and they're scuffling all over the shop and knocking things over. And they end up out on the porch, through the door, out on the porch, and they're scuffling on the porch. And all of a sudden, Wicked John gives a big shove. And that devil lands right in the middle of that thorn bush. That thorn bush wraps right around that devil and starts squeezing. And those thorns are digging into his skin. And he's going, "Help! Help! Let me out of here! This hurts! Ouch! 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 This hurts! Ouch! Ouch! It's prickly! Ow! 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 Let me out! Ow! Ow! Let me out! Ow! Let me out of here!" Wicked John said, "I will. On one condition, I'll let you out." And the devil said, "Ow! Ow! Ow! What is it? I'll do it. What is it? Ow! 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 Ow!" Wicked John said, "You have to promise me. If I let you out, ow! If I let you out, you'll leave and you'll never come back. You'll leave me alone. Never bother me again." The devil said, "Ow! Ow! I promise. Ow! Just let me out. Ow! I promise I won't bother you no more. Ow! You or your boys, neither one? I promise none of us are going to bother you anymore. Out! Let me out. Wicked John said, okay, stop. Thornbush quit squeezing, opened up, let that devil out, and that devil was gone. So, Wicked John went on for years and years working his blacksmith shop. He wasn't so wicked anymore, but he wasn't an angel either. He was better to his family and his wife and a little bit better to his neighbors, but he still wasn't the best person around. He lived for a long time after that. And then one day, as we all do, Wicked John died. And he was walking up the streets of gold to the gates of pearl. And he gets there. And who should meet him but St. Peter? And St. Peter said, well, how'd it go with those wishes? And Wicked John said, well, pretty good, I think. St. Peter said, well, let me look and see. I really don't know what you're doing here. I don't think your name's on my list. And Wicked John said, but I straightened up, sort of, kind of. My name should be there. So St. Peter looked down the list and he said, no, I don't see your name on the list anywhere. Wicked John said, well, what does that mean? What do I do now? St. Peter said, well, it means you're going to have to go be with the devil. Wicked John said, check one more time. And St. Peter checked one more time. He said, I'm positive your name's not here. Wicked John said, okay. And he turned around and he walked back down. He walked and he walked and he walked and he walked. And he was approaching the devil's home and getting pretty close. And all of a sudden, saw somebody look out, and it was that little bitty devil. And the little devil said, look, Pa, it's Wicked John. He's coming in here with us. Look. The devil said, quick, shut them doors. He ain't coming in here with us. So they shut all the doors and locked them tight. Wicked John walked up to the gates and he said, can I come in? I got turned away up there and they told me I had to come down here. Can I come in? Do you have a place for me? The devil said, we ain't got no place for the likes of you. After the way you treated my boys and me, we ain't got no place for the likes of you. Wicked John said, what am I supposed to do? I'm dead. I have to go somewhere. I can't go up there. I can't come down here. Where am I supposed to go? Well, the devil turns around, takes his tongs, and just like our campfire here has got these hot coals in it, he picked up a hot coal with those tongs, and he hands that coal to Wicked John, and he says, there, you go make your own place. You go find your own place. Wicked John said, okay, I guess. So he takes the hot coal and the tongs, and he walks, and he walks, and he walks. Seemed like he walked forever. And then, all of a sudden, one day he spotted up in this mountain, about halfway up this mountain, an opening. Looked like there was a cave. So he climbed up there, and it was a nice-sized cave. And he thought, this would be a good place for me. I can make my place here. So he took that hot coal in there, and he built him a nice fire, and continued to live there. And you know, I even heard he was still blacksmithing in there, in that cave. Well, he'd been there for a while, and one day it came a huge, huge rain, made a flood, and a waterfall covered up his cave. And that waterfall never went away. Even when the flood receded, that waterfall stayed. And he's still there now, living in that cave behind that waterfall. And if any of you have ever been to Cumberland Falls at night, Cumberland Falls is not far from here. If you've been to Cumberland Falls at night and seen the moonbow, that's the reflection of Wicked John's fire behind that waterfall. So if you've not seen that, you need to go check that out sometime, because I hear he's still back there blacksmithing in that cave behind that waterfall. I hope that you've enjoyed my story, and as I always do, I encourage all of you, I always encourage my listeners to be a storyteller. You've got family stories to tell. You've got stories like the one I just told, which I read from a book, that you can pass on to your children and grandchildren. This is an old oral tradition that we don't need to die. We need to keep passing this tradition on to our younger people out there. Storytelling is wonderful, and all of you can be a storyteller. Tell your stories to your family and friends. Share those with your kids and grandkids. And I can't wait till we can be together again in person. Thank you.